All right, so section 33, number 86. We are told to look at the graph of this thing, which I will trust you to do. It's also in the book, although it's kind of tiny and it's tough to see what's happening. And then we are asked to factor this thing out. One of the things we notice when we look at the graph of this thing, this is a fourth degree polynomial, and it crosses the axis 4 times, right? A fourth degree polynomial has at most 4 zeros. And this thing actually has all 4 zeros. What that means is that we can factor this thing into 4 distinct binomials. Now, if you look at the graph in the book, things are really tiny. If you look at the graph on Grapher or a graphic calculator, there are 2 of them that are nice integer fractions, right? It looks like it goes through x is equal to -1, right? So that means if I add 1 to both sides, x plus 1 is a factor. And it also looks like it goes through, I'm going to have to look quick, 2. Okay, and that means that x minus 2 is a factor. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to first do long division and factor this thing out, getting x plus 1 times a cubic, and then that cubic I'm going to divide out the x minus 2, getting for the total function x plus 1 times x minus 2 times a quadratic. Then I can then use the quadratic formula on if I don't see a nice way to factor the quadratic. Okay, so let's do that. Right. So our first step is I take my full quadratic and I divide out the x plus 1. All right, same questions. What do I need to do to x to make it look like minus x to the 4th? Well, I need to make it a negative, and I need to multiply by x cubed. Minus x cubed times x gives us a minus x to the 4th. Minus x cubed times 1 gives us a minus x cubed. Then I subtract, which is the same thing as flipping the signs and adding. This cancels. 5 plus 1 is 6. All right, now I have 6x cubed. Well, I don't have an x squared term, do I? I don't, okay? I'm actually going to move this over and put a little gap in there. That way I don't confuse myself, right? I don't have a quadratic term. If I really want to be explicit about it, I have a 0x squared, right? Right? That'll help keep that placeholder in place. All right, but the question I ask is the same. What do I do to my x to make it look like a 6x cubed? I multiply by 6x squared. 6x squared times x is 6x cubed. 6x squared times 1 is 6x squared. And then I subtract this. Subtracting is the same thing as flipping the signs and adding. This cancels. This becomes a minus 6x squared. And now I bring down my my linear bit. Okay. Again, what do I need to do to make x look like, in this case, minus x squared? I need to multiply by a minus 6x. 6x squared. Minus 6x times x is a minus 6x squared. Minus 6x times 1 is a minus 6x. And then I subtract this. But subtracting is the same thing as flipping the signs and adding. This cancels out. Minus 10x plus 6x is a minus 4x. And I get a plus 4. One of my signs is wrong. Oh, yeah, this is a minus 4. Yeah, because I was going to get a remainder. All right, there we go. That's a minus. That should be a minus. That's a minus. That's a minus. All right, we're good. All right, what do I need to do to the x to make it look like a minus 4x? I multiply by a minus 4. Minus 4 times x is a minus 4x. Minus 4 times 1 is a minus 4. And then I subtract, which is the same thing as flipping the signs and adding. And I get 0, 0, 0, remainder of 0. That means x plus 1 is a factor, right? That means when I looked at the graph, I looked at the right number, and that's good. All right, so what that means is that my initial polynomial looks like x plus 1 times this thing, minus x cubed plus 6x squared minus 6x minus 4. Okay? This is the same as that. All right. And I have used this factor. Okay? I have not used x minus 2 yet. But now I know that the x minus 2, that's not going to divide this thing nicely at all, but it should, if it is a factor, divide the remaining cubic. It has to be, 2 has to be a 0 of the remaining cubic since it's not a 0 of this thing. Alright, so let's divide that out. Okay, so let's divide our minus x cubed plus 6x squared minus 6x minus 4. Make sure all my signs are right. Well, it doesn't matter, I erased it anyway, right? So we'll see if they're right or not. And divide out the x minus 2. All right. What do I need to do to x to make it look like a minus x cubed? It's a minus x squared. Minus x cubed, minus and a minus is a plus, 2x squared. Well, now we subtract, which is the same thing as flipping the signs and adding. This cancels, 6 minus 2 is 4x squared. I bring down my minus 6x. What do I need to do to the x to make it look like a 4x squared? Let's multiply by a 4x. 4x times x is a 4x squared. 4x times a minus 2 is a minus 8x. Then I subtract this. But subtraction is the same thing as flipping the signs and adding, canceling. 8 minus 6 is a 2x minus 4. Okay. What do I need to do to the x to make it look like a 2x is multiply it by 2. 2 times x is 2x. 2 times a negative 2 is negative 4. I subtract. Subtraction is the same thing as flipping the signs and adding, and the remainder is 0. So again, this is a factor. Okay. So this is the same thing as this, is the same thing as x minus 2, x plus 1, I haven't done anything with that, times x minus 2 times this quadratic, minus x squared plus 4x plus 2. Okay? All right. Now, are there any other nice factors that look like they come out of this? Well, no. I don't see any nice factors coming out of the remaining bit. But it is a quadratic, so I can use the quadratic equation here. Right? Let's give me some room here. So this quadratic should be x is equal to minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times our a, which is negative 1, times our c, which is 2, all over 2 times a, which is 2 times negative 1. All right? X is equal to minus 4 plus or minus square root. 4 squared is 16. 4 times 2 is 8. Negative times a negative is a positive. Plus 8. All over minus 2. Okay? 16 plus 8 is 24. All right, well, 24 is 4 times 6. All right, so I can rewrite this as minus 4 plus or minus the square root of 4 times the square root of 6 all over minus 2. So our x comes out to be square root of 4 I can treat as a 2. I can do the negative 4 divided by the negative 2, which is a positive 2. Plus or minus, this is the same thing as 2 times the square root of 6. 2 times the square root of 6 over a negative 2 is negative or positive. The 2's will cancel, leaving a square root of 6. Okay, so our two remaining factors are 2 minus the square root of 6 and 2 plus the square root of 6. Okay, all right, so we'll get x is equal to 2 minus the square root of 6, which means that, if I move all this stuff over, x minus 2 plus the square root of 6 is a factor. Okay, or the plus 1 equals 2 plus the square root of 6. And here, again, I can subtract these guys over to the other side. This going to gives us x minus 2 minus the square root of 6 as my other factor. Okay, so I can fully factor this thing into the 4 zeros, x plus 1, which I got from interpreting the graph, x minus 2 I got from interpreting the graph, and then our remaining pieces, x minus 2 plus the square root of 6, x minus 2 minus the square root of 6. Okay. Now, is there anything we haven't accounted for? If we tried just plugging this in the graph, we would see that we would get the graph is upside down. There's a minus here that we haven't accounted for, right? Just in the previous one, if we tried the quadratic equation, there was a 3 that we hadn't accounted for, and we had to multiply the whole thing by 3, right? Because if we do x times x times x times x, we would get x to the 4th. We need a negative x to the 4th. So what you can do is you can just go through and multiply the whole thing by negative 1. That makes everything work out nicely. Okay? And if you graph this and this thing, they should be identical. Okay? Good luck. Good graphing.